Have you ever wondered what it feels like to be deep underground, surrounded by darkness, where every turn could lead to discovery or disaster? Imagine exploring a vast, uncharted cave, only to realize you've taken a wrong turn. The walls close in, your path disappears, and you're trapped in a maze of stone with no way out. Before we dive into the video, I'd like to ask for your support by subscribing to our channel. Currently, only 8% of our viewers are subscribed, but your subscription helps us create more content like this. Simply click the subscribe button, like this video, and hit the bell icon to stay updated on our latest uploads. This isn't just a story. It's a real-life incident that happened to two cavers in the depths of Thanksgiving Cave on Vancouver Island. What started as an exciting adventure turned into a 29-hour fight against fear and uncertainty. How did they survive the freezing darkness and find their way back? Let us unravel the gripping tale of courage, teamwork, and an unforgettable rescue. Hidden above Head Bay on Vancouver Island, Thanksgiving Cave is a remarkable gem that draws adventurers and cave enthusiasts from all over the world. Known as the longest and deepest cave on the island, it offers a thrilling challenge for those who are experienced and well prepared. However, this cave isn't for the faint-hearted. Exploring its depths requires climbing skills, specialized equipment, and a sense of adventure. The cave's passages are narrow and winding, leading to deep chambers that often appear unexpectedly beneath your feet. This makes careful navigation essential. The karst formations inside are stunning, showcasing the natural beauty of the cave's limestone structure. These formations, with their rough edges, hint at the low water flow within the cave. Now, while the flow of water may be minimal, it is enough to create a cool and damp environment that adds to the cave's mystique. Thanksgiving Cave is not just another underground adventure. It is a must-visit destination for serious cavers. The sense of accomplishment that comes from exploring its tight, challenging passages makes it worth every effort. However, safety should always be a priority, and only experienced cavers or those with a knowledgeable guide should attempt this journey. Located near Tassis in British Columbia, Thanksgiving Cave is surrounded by natural beauty. The cave is situated at the end of Tulupana Inlet, south of the Haiti Range and Wass Lake Provincial Park. The entrance is tucked away in the woods, making it difficult to find without proper guidance. The unmarked logging roads leading to the cave add to the adventure, but they also make it crucial to go with someone familiar with the area. Tassis, often called Canada's caving capital, is the perfect base for exploring Thanksgiving Cave. The town itself is a hub for ecotourism, offering over 50 kilometers of mapped cave passages in the surrounding mountains. Visitors can also enjoy the region's other attractions, including natural sites, water sports, and fishing charters. Local groups, like the Vancouver Island Cave Exploration Group, can provide maps and guidance to help you navigate the area. Thanksgiving Cave, at an impressive depth of 430 meters, is one of the most hazardous caves in the area. Its rugged terrain and tight spaces make it unsuitable for children, pets, or anyone uncomfortable with confined spaces. Climbing skills are a necessity, and a guide is strongly recommended. For safety, it's recommended to always inform someone of your plans and carry essential caving gear, including a helmet, sturdy boots, gloves, and 3 sources of light. The caver's motto, "Take nothing but pictures, leave nothing but footprints," is a reminder to respect the unique and delicate environment of caves. Thanksgiving Cave offers an unforgettable experience, but it also demands responsibility and preparation. If you are ready for an underground adventure that tests your limits and rewards you with incredible sights, Thanksgiving Cave is a destination you won't want to miss. With the right precautions and respect for nature, your journey into this hidden wonder of Vancouver Island is sure to be both spectacular and safe. It was Tuesday, December 27, 1983, when a group of 4 adventurous cavers set out to explore Thanksgiving Cave on Vancouver Island. This cave, known for its complex passages and challenging terrain, had long been a destination for those keen to test their skills. The group, made up of 2 pairs of young men all aged 22, had planned for an ambitious through trip, meaning entering the cave through one entrance and exiting through another, traversing its intricate system of passages. The cavers were well prepared for their journey. They carried helmets, sturdy boots, gloves, and multiple sources of light. Each member of the group was experienced, having explored other caves before. Despite their familiarity with caving, the group knew that Thanksgiving Cave would be no ordinary adventure. Its narrow tunnels, sudden drops, and unpredictable turns demanded precision and caution. Nevertheless, they were excited, buzzing with the thrill of venturing into one of Vancouver Island's most notorious caves. The day began with high spirits. As the group approached the cave's entrance, they double-checked their gear and reviewed their plan. Inside the cave, the air was cool and damp, and the sound of trickling water echoed through the passages. The light of their headlamps illuminated rough limestone walls, and shadows danced eerily around them. Now, for the first part of their journey, everything went smoothly. The group worked together, climbing, crawling, and navigating tight squeezes. However, as they moved deeper into the cave, the terrain became more challenging. Some passages were so narrow that they had to wiggle through on their stomachs, and the walls seemed to close in on them. Despite this, the group pressed on, motivated by the promise of completing their through trip. As the hours passed, the cavers decided to split into 2 pairs to speed up their progress. It seemed like a logical decision at the time. The first pair continued on their planned route, confident that they would reunite with their friends at the second entrance. The other 2, equally determined, took a slightly different path. Now, by the time the first pair exited the cave, they were relieved to have completed their journey. Yet, as they waited outside for their friends, concern began to creep in. Minutes turned into hours, and there was no sign of the second pair. Getting worried, they decided to re-enter the cave to search for them. However, the labyrinth-like nature of Thanksgiving Cave made it nearly impossible to retrace their steps. After searching for some time with no success, they knew that they needed help. The first pair contacted the Vancouver Island Cave Exploration Group, also known as VICEG, and the British Columbia Speleological Federation, also known as BCSF. These organizations quickly mobilized a team of experienced cavers to launch a search and rescue operation. Thanksgiving Cave, with its depth of 430 meters and complex network of passages, posed significant challenges even for the seasoned rescuers. Meanwhile, inside the cave, the 2 now lost cavers were battling a terrifying reality. As they moved around the maze of tunnels, they had realized that they had taken a wrong turn. The excitement that they had felt earlier was now replaced by fear and uncertainty. Their headlamps cast dim beams of light in the darkness, barely revealing the way forward. The air felt heavier, and the silence was broken only by the sound of their breathing and the occasional drip of water. Claustrophobia began to set in. The tight passages seemed even smaller, and every movement was a struggle. Crawling on their hands and knees, their bodies ached from the effort. The cold, damp air seeped into their clothes, making them shiver. Time seemed to stretch endlessly. Without a clear sense of direction, they felt trapped in a never-ending nightmare. Despite the fear and pain, the 2 cavers were determined to find a way out. They rationed their energy, knowing that panic would only worsen their condition. Their bond as friends gave them strength, and they encouraged each other to keep going. Meanwhile, outside, the rescue operation was in full swing. Experienced cavers from VICEG and BCSF entered the cave, equipped with ropes, maps, and extra supplies. The rescue team methodically searched every passage, calling out for the missing pair. The work was slow and exhausting, but the team was determined to bring the cavers back safely. After 29 agonizing hours, the rescuers finally located the 2 lost cavers. They were found in good condition, albeit exhausted and shaken by their ordeal. The rescuers provided them with water and helped guide them back through the cave's passages to safety. When the group finally emerged into the daylight, there was an overwhelming sense of relief and gratitude. The cavers who had become lost in Thanksgiving Cave were not careless or inexperienced. They had a good understanding of the cave survey, showing that they had prepared for the trip. However, even with preparation, caves like Thanksgiving Cave can be unpredictable and challenging. This incident is a warning for all cavers. When attempting a through trip or exploring complex cave systems, always take someone who knows the way. Having an experienced guide can make the difference between a thrilling adventure and a dangerous situation. With proper planning, teamwork, and respect for the cave's challenges, such explorations can be both safe and unforgettable. Today, the December 1983 incident is remembered as a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the incredible dedication of those who risked their lives to save others. Thanksgiving Cave today remains a place of wonder and challenge, but its lessons are etched into the hearts of those who venture into its depths. California beachgoers are no strangers to the hundreds of small caves dotting the rocky coastlines all along the state's oceanic border. Some marvel at the foreboding tunnels from afar. Others take their boats inside for picnics and parties. And some dare to dive into the waters and explore the caves on foot. Many of these caves may be small, but make no mistake, these unforgiving caves can kill just as easily as the world's largest subterranean mazes. One traveler learned firsthand how deadly these caves can be when he found himself injured and trapped inside Terranea Cove. This is the story of his struggle for survival and the lone lifeguard who risked it all to save him. The cave of today's video goes by a few different names. Some call it Hudson's Bluff, while others call it Terranea Cove. Either way, it's a sea cave formed by waters crashing into weak sections of the rocky coastline. Sometimes the oceanic salt water dissolves the coast and pushes sea caves deeper, connecting them to inland caves if their tunnels reach too close to the coastline. Otherwise known as littoral caves, sea caves are usually much smaller than their inland counterparts, but occasionally, fault lines can enable sea caves to grow to the size of regular caves. Nearby examples include the Catacombs Cave and the Convergent Fault Cave at California's Anacapa Island, formed by 6 fault lines converging with a weak section of coastline, enabling the sea to flood into the cracks and form a massive cave. Quietly hidden along the coastline at the Rancho Palos Verdes, Terranea Cove might not be interesting to geologists, but it is one of the most famous coastal caves on the planet. Film crews turned the cave into a vampire lair for the 1987 movie The Lost Boys. The film was commercially and critically successful, grossing $32.2 million with a production budget of only $8.5 million. The success of The Lost Boys is nothing compared to the blockbusters of today, but the movie single-handedly changed how vampires were portrayed in media, paving the way for cultural hits like Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Twilight. One day, a traveler visiting the California coast decided to enter the Lost Boys Cave. Because sea caves are so small and generally easy to explore, he didn't think to bring any special gear. After all, there's no danger of falling into a crack, and the cave doesn't encourage kneeling or belly crawling through tight squeezes like regular caves. Instead, the bottoms of the sea caves like this one are often accessible from the beach, or they might be permanently flooded, so explorers can bring kayaks or other boats into the rocky alcove. It was his first time visiting the Palos Verdes sea caves. He saw social media posts that made the area look like a ton of fun. Some videos show that this cave isn't always flooded, so this adventurer didn't even bring a swimsuit. He had the day to himself. And while it would have been more fun with friends, he wasn't going to let their plans ruin his good time, so he went to the beach alone. From the Pelican Cove parking lot, the novice caver went on a short hike along the Point Vincente Trail to the South Bay. The gnarled yellow rock of the coastline met a gray pebbled beach as cool ocean tides lapped up to the shore. Tide pools teeming with marine life dotted the walkway, and in the distance, the Point Vincente lighthouse kept its watchful gaze over the ocean to warn wandering ships of the rocky coast ahead. This route is great for casual hikers and visitors to the region. Park officials placed restrooms and showers beyond the tide pools, and there's even a nearby restaurant to replenish your energy after a long day of adventuring in California's sea caves and coastlines. However, the allure of alcohol can get the best of people. Many people have downed a couple beers to get a nice buzz going before running back to the Pacific waters nearby. Slips and falls are common. Now, many just get scraped or bruised, but the occasional sprain or concussion can happen, especially when drunk partygoers take to the caves at nighttime. And that's when our man saw the cave. There are multiple paths to reach Terranea. The easiest route is along the beach when the tide is low, but some cavers must climb the waterlogged rocks and around the ledge to reach it. Or swimmers may try the route by water. While the cave is an idyllic spot for a selfie, all paths have their perils. The rocks are slippery and jagged. It only takes one strong wave to knock you back. Since this cave is often explored by hikers and visitors, almost no one brings helmets or other protective gear. Even a small fall on these rocks could be lights out permanently. Inside Terranea Cove, Hudson's Bluff Sea Cave explorers can gaze out at the vast horizon and endless blue skies. Except the normally pristine skyline was blemished that day. Dark gray clouds loomed overhead. They were fast approaching and swallowing the sky as they charged toward the coastline. The man stripped off his shirt and shoes and jumped into the water. He swam to the edge of the cave and climbed onto the rocky floor. There, he sat, listening to the unique symphony played by the water echoing through the holes of the rocky cliffs. Mesmerized by the sound, time escaped him. After splashing in the sea some more, he left to go get some food. He later came back to the cliff for one last jump. He walked to the edge and looked over. By now, the tides had completely covered the floor of the cave, but he couldn't see how deep they were. The waves were getting stronger, but nothing that he couldn't handle. Or so he thought. He stepped back a few feet, the stones and rough terrain stabbing at his bare feet as he braced himself, pushed off with his back leg, and ran to the edge. He jumped, his arms waving through the air to balance himself. He had just enough space to avoid the rocks below. With a splash, the sound around him muffled as the water closed around him. He sank down a few feet or so before his downward momentum slowed to a stop. He kicked his feet and dug through the water with his hands as his cheeks ballooned with the last gulp of held breath. The darkening sky cast only thin rays of light through the frantic waters as he crested above and gasped for air. He shook his head and opened his eyes just in time to see terror approaching. A massive wave crashed into him, pulling him below the waterline again. Without time for a good breath, his mouth filled with salt water as roiling sprays stung his eyes. The force of the wave pushed him inside Terranea Cave. He desperately grasped at the rocks, trying to right himself and keep his head above water. The cove of the cave broke the waves, giving him just enough respite to climb the rocky walls to higher ground. A group back at the restaurant noticed that he jumped again, but he never came back up the cliff. Concerned, they braced for the winds whipping across the bay and walked to the cliff. They could hear him shouting for help below. Inebriated and shocked, the group stood at the coast and waved at the sky, begging for help, instead of returning to the bar to call for aid. All the while, the waves rose higher and higher. Meanwhile, on the sandy beaches down the coastline, Nick Macco was using his binoculars to scan the beach. Macco was a veteran of the Los Angeles County Fire Department's lifeguard division, with 20 years of heroic work on his resume. Instead of the old days, or what you might see in the movies, Mako often sits in an off-road truck or SUV while on duty. Vehicles like his are mobile command centers for the lifeguards. Instead of dotting the coastline with dozens of sheds and tall lifeguard seats, rescuers can store all their first aid gear in the trunk and quickly drive from point A to B whenever or wherever they're needed. Mako turned the volume down on his speakers as he awaited for word from his relief. He was eager to get home and relax after a tense day on duty, but the ominous sky worried him. The winds had picked up speed and the tide was getting aggressive. Beachgoers were already thinning out, and this was at the height of the pandemic, so the crowds were already pretty thin, but he didn't take anything for granted. He performed one last scan of the horizon before his backup was scheduled to arrive. With only 2 minutes left on his shift, Mako heard something over the sound of his music. His cell phone. It wasn't his family or friends asking him to get drinks later. The screen on his phone read, 911 dispatch. Mako quickly answered the call. The calm, almost robotic voice of the operator informed him that fishermen were returning to the docks to beat the storm when they saw what looked like a group of people waving their arms. The fishermen approached and saw the group of panicked vacationers yelling for help on the coastline, and the fishermen were the ones to call in the emergency. They also said a puzzling line. The stuck caver was running out of air. Mako forgot all about his shift ending and his weekend plans and jumped into action. He gathered his gear and turned on his vehicle, but before he could hit the gas, he realized a glaring problem. There were tons of caves along the Palos Verdes coastline. If he checked them one by one, he could easily run out of time to save whoever was stuck, and each time he checked, he would be putting himself in harm's way. The line about air caused Mako to wonder if the caver was a diver. If he was, Mako wouldn't be able to do much on his own, especially with the rising tides. That was it. The rising tides. The cave had to be in the Lost Boys Cave because it has a secondary tunnel past the main entrance. If the trapped explorer went deeper into the cave to avoid the waters, he would be trapped as the waterline turned into a sump that sealed off his exit. The waters would rise slowly in the inner chamber, giving him time to panic and yell for help. Mako called for backup and informed them the trapped caver could be anywhere, but he trusted his instincts and drove to the cave. Back inside the cave, the stranded thrill-seeker was paralyzed with fear. He could try to climb across the ledge and climb up the cliff, but he couldn't shake the paranoia of what might happen. When the tides threw him back, he collided with a large rock in the center of the channel leading into the cave. He was bloody from the impact. His pain and the endless waves made him think about slipping into the rocks. Even if he didn't fall into the ocean, he could still die on that ledge if he hit his head. After all, it's possible to drown in only an inch of water. It just takes enough water to cover your mouth and nose. And with the surging tides frothing higher and higher, there was more than enough water to drown him if he lost consciousness. Waves like the one crashing into the cave move at an average speed of roughly 6 miles per hour, which doesn't sound like much, but these aren't wind. Even small waves can apply hundreds of pounds of pressure. But even the force of these waves is usually not enough to cause any damage. Even infants can take the full brunt of some small waves. Almost everyone stood on the beach and tried to remain standing as the waves come crashing in. However, with the ground to stand on, your body will move with the waves. It isn't how much force the waves hit you with, but how they hit you. With your back against the rocks, the impact of the wave would have little effect. But even if your back is against the rocky shore, the movement of the tide can pull you forward. Then, the sudden shift in direction can send you whipping back into the rock. The man's fear was reasonable. It's not the force of the blow that causes concussions, but the velocity of the brain hitting the inside of your skull. People can shrug off a strong blow that doesn't move the skull very much, but even a light tap to the side of the jaw can twist the skull with enough torque to whip your brain into your skull and shut off your frontal lobes. The man's frantic thoughts were suddenly cut off by the sound of a voice. Mako had made it to the cliff above him. The two shouted to each other over the roar of the waves while additional rescuers arrived at the scene. With multiple people to help, They could easily toss a ladder down or work in tandem to save him. Normally, when rescuers save people from caves, they create a long chain of people from the accident site all the way to the entrance. That way, there's always someone in touch with the trapped or injured caver. The human chain prevents any one rescuer from fatiguing on the exit route, and all the eyes can watch for any additional dangers. But the rescuers realized a traditional rescue wouldn't work here. The first responders were mostly fellow firefighters, paramedics, and police who weren't trained to handle open water rescues, especially in the raging tides. Fellow lifeguards arrived to help, but they weren't trained in cave rescues. Mako realized he was the only one there trained for this rare scenario. Mako squeezed into his wetsuit, strapped on his helmet, grabbed a long red life preserver, and jumped into the rising waters. He kept to the side of the cave to avoid gathering momentum if the water pushed him into the walls. Video from the rescue shows the tides look almost calm as Mako swims into Terranea Cove, but remember, this cave was dry just hours before. Plus, inside the stone walls of Hudson's Bluff, the waters were completely different. The swelling waves crashed along the walls of the cave and the currents bashed into each other, creating a whirlpool. Mako said it was like being stuck in a washing machine. Mako reached the injured caver and assessed his situation. The man was shocked, but then hope came to his face as Mako reassured him. But that confidence instantly drained when Mako told him to grab onto the life preserver and hold on tight. He was confused and asked, shouldn't they wait for the rest of the rescuers? Mako grimly informed him that he was the only one who could save him now. The man resisted. He felt abandoned as his life flashed before his eyes. Mako reminded him that they could still make it out alive, but time was running out. If they didn't leave now, they would both drown. The man hesitated, but he grabbed hold of the flotation device and Mako began swimming for both of their lives. The waters became almost impassable as Mako defiantly kicked and pulled through the waves. Mako used every muscle in his body to push forward, but at some moments he actually lost ground as the waves forced him backward. Footage from the return trip shows 1 to 3 foot waves threatening to kill the two men. Thankfully, the moment they left the mouth of the cave, the tides lowered just enough for Mako to torpedo his way across the last stretch of water. They reached the edge of the rocky coast at a spot with enough hand and footholds to safely climb up. Mako had to help the man up, but he lost his footing and nearly crashed into the rocks. He heaved once more and brought the man up to what looked like safety, but just as they stood up, they saw how close they came to death. The moment they turned around, a wave much larger and more aggressive than the ones they battled with before slammed into the rock at the exact spot they used to climb out of the water. If they had been only seconds later, the wave could have knocked the man off the life preserver and sent him rolling down into the cave. Mako himself could have been thrown from the ledge and dashed against the rocks, where he would have been left concussed or bleeding as the water shoved him into Terranea as well. But somehow, they made it out alive. The two climbed up the coastline and the man was treated for his injuries. He apologized for his disbelief and distrust of Mako's abilities and thanked him for risking his life to save him. Likewise, the humble lifeguard thanked his chief and the supporting rescuers for their willingness to jump into the raging California waters despite the dangers. In 2020, at the International Surf Festival, Mako was awarded the Medal of Valor for his daring rescue at the Terranea Cove cave.